Think about the plastic containers in your kitchen or the scented candles in your living room. What if I told you these everyday items might be exposing you to a hidden threat? Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today. We are breaking down some urgent warnings from one of the world's most respected longevity experts, Dr. Eric Topol, about the toxic chemicals that might be silently wrecking our health. So here's the game plan. First, we're going to see how our bodies are already under attack. Then we'll get to know these toxic invaders a little better. After that, we'll unpack the health crisis they're causing, pinpoint where they're hiding in your home, and, most importantly, walk through 3 crucial steps you can take starting today. All right, let's get right to the most startling part of this whole thing. This isn't some far-off environmental problem we can worry about later. No, the threat is already inside our bodies, and the evidence for this is just, well, it's overwhelming. So we have to start by asking a really personal question. Are these invisible toxins already inside your body? And look, according to all the data we're seeing, the answer is almost certainly yes. And what that means for our health is pretty staggering. Dr. Topol really doesn't pull any punches here. He says, quote, "We're finding a spoonful of plastics in our brain." He's talking about autopsies that are revealing these tiny plastic particles all throughout the brain. And here's the kicker. Wherever they find these plastics, they're surrounded by profound inflammation.
And this isn't some abstract risk. It's directly linked to the #1 killer. A huge study out of Italy found that people who had detectable microplastics in the arteries in their neck, they faced a 4 times greater risk of having a heart attack or a stroke. That's a massive number.
Okay, so let's get specific. What are these invaders we're talking about? We hear these terms thrown around all the time, but what exactly are microplastics and these so-called forever chemicals? First up, you've got microplastics. Now, this isn't some special kind of plastic. They're literally just microscopic fragments that break off from the stuff we use every single day. Water bottles, food packaging, even our clothes. And the big problem is, they're not biodegradable. So once they get into our bodies, they're pretty much there to stay. And then there's PFAS, which you probably know better as forever chemicals. And listen, this isn't just one bad chemical. It is a massive family of over 10,000 different man-made chemicals. They're used to make products resistant to water, stains, and heat. So you're going to find them in everything from nonstick pans to waterproof jackets to even some pizza boxes. So why do they call them forever chemicals? Well, it all comes down to their basic structure. They're built around this incredibly strong chemical bond between fluorine and carbon atoms. It's actually one of the strongest bonds in all of organic chemistry. And what that means is they just don't break down, not in the environment and not in our bodies. And the scale of this problem is, it's hard to even wrap your head around. This is not an issue for a small group of people. Studies are now showing that 97% of Americans have these forever chemicals circulating in their bloodstream right now. So, if these toxins are pretty much everywhere, what are they actually doing to our health? Let's connect the dots between this widespread exposure and some of the really disturbing health trends we're seeing pop up. The mechanism here is dangerously simple. As Dr. Topol explains it, when these tiny foreign particles get into our tissues, whether it's an artery wall or deep in the brain, our body recognizes them as invaders. So it launches an immune response, which causes local inflammation. But because we're being exposed constantly, that inflammation never turns off. It becomes chronic. And we know that chronic inflammation is a key driver of almost every major disease out there. And the results of this constant, low-grade inflammation are really serious. Researchers are now linking this widespread chemical exposure to things like the unexplained rise in aggressive cancers in people under 40, the sharp declines we're seeing in both male and female fertility, and of course, a much greater risk of cardiovascular events, blood clots, and even autoimmune conditions. Okay, I know this all sounds incredibly overwhelming, but this is the part where we get practical. Because knowledge really is power, and if we can identify the biggest sources of these toxins in our own homes, we can start to slash our exposure right away. A major offender is likely in your kitchen cabinets as we speak, plastic food containers. Dr. Topol talks about something he calls dwell time. Basically, the longer your food sits in plastic, the more microplastics can leach out into it. The simple swap? Just use inert materials like glass or stainless steel for your food storage. And whatever you do, please stop microwaving your food in plastic. Dr. Topol calls this a double whammy. Why? Because the heat dramatically speeds up the breakdown of the plastic, which unleashes a flood of these particles directly into your meal. All right, another really common source is your non-stick cookware. Those convenient coatings are often made with PFAS, and when they get heated up, especially if they're scratched, they can release these forever chemicals right into the food you're cooking. The good news is, the old school alternatives like cast iron and stainless steel are much safer bets.
Now, this one might actually surprise you. Scented products. A lot of candles, especially the brightly colored ones with strong artificial scents, can actually release PFAS into the air you're breathing as they burn. According to Dr. Topple, a huge red flag is when there's no ingredient list. Your best bet is to opt for candles made from natural waxes, like soy or beeswax, from companies that are totally transparent about what's in them. And finally, take a good look inside your bathroom cabinet. So many personal care products, hairsprays, deodorants, you name it, can contain fluorocarbons, which are a type of PFAS. Here's a tip. If you see the word fluoro anywhere on an ingredient list, that's a warning sign. You want to look for products with simple, organic ingredients that you can actually recognize. So the big takeaway here shouldn't be fear. It should be having a clear plan for action. And Dr. Topol really boils it down to 3 straightforward steps that take us from our own personal awareness all the way to broader collective change. Step 1 is just awareness, simply acknowledging that these environmental toxins are a serious health risk. Step 2 is individual action, making those simple swaps we just talked about to lower your family's exposure. And step 3, which is maybe the most important, is a collective push, using our power as consumers to demand that companies make safer products and that our governments actually regulate these harmful chemicals. When you really think about it, it all boils down to this one choice. For decades, we've chosen the convenience of plastics and chemicals. But now, with the evidence of the harm they cause becoming so undeniable, we have to ask ourselves, when it comes to the products we buy and bring into our homes, which one will we finally choose to prioritize?